So, Bismillah Rahman Al Rahim, Salatu Wassalamu ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Jazakallah khairan for joining us today. Before I proceed, I'd like to request that all participants, except for Muhammad Carter and Dr. Bilal Philips, turn off their videos and mute their microphones. As well, all discussions and questions to the speaker can be directed through chat. And inshallah, I will be choosing questions for Dr. Bilal Philips to answer towards the end. Okay, so assalamu alaikum. My name is Iman Ismail. I'm the president of Georgetown University's Muslim Students Association in Qatar. And it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our virtual discussion entitled Embracing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names in the holy month of Ramadan. With our honorable guest, Dr. Bilal Philips. Inshallah, he will speak to us today on the contemplative aspects of this theme as it applies to the blessed month of Ramadan and within these trying times of COVID-19. But before I further introduce our speaker, I would first like to invite Muhammad Carter for a recitation of the Quran on this very topic, followed by a translation of the ayat. So, Muhammad, please take it away.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم صدق الله العظيم. So the translation of these ayahs is, Allah is He than whom there is no other God, the Sovereign, the Holy One, the source of peace and perfection, the guardian of faith, the preserver of safety, the exalted in might, the irresistible, the supreme. Glory to Allah. High is He above the partners they attribute to Him. He is Allah, the creator, the evolver, the bestower of forms or colors. To Him belong the most beautiful names. Whatever is in the heavens and on earth, all do declare His praises and glory, and He is the exalted in might, the wise.
Jazakallah khair, Muhammad, for that beautiful recitation. And now it is my great honor to introduce the esteemed Dr. Bilal Philips. Dr. Abu Amina Bilal Philips is a Jamaican-Canadian convert to Islam and a globally renowned Islamic scholar, speaker, and author. Educated in Medina and Riyadh in Islamic studies and Islamic theology, respectively, then having received his PhD in Islamic theology at the University of Wales in the United Kingdom, his education alone speaks for his dedication to this beautiful deen. After lecturing widely in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and across the US, he founded the Islamic Online University, has run innumerable Islamic TV programs, and founded multiple educational institutes, including the Rahman Islamic University in Sudan, which is particularly close to my heart. This Ramadan, many, including myself, have found inspiration and motivation in his daily series in the names of Allah. I've been particularly excited and humbled by the grace of Allah for His blessings in allowing this collaboration to occur. Given that Dr. Philips is among the first few from whose lectures, books, and quotes I furthered my Islamic knowledge, as I'm sure many of you can relate. For his hard work, persistence, and diligence in educating the Muslim Ummah globally, he has received worthy recognition as one of the 500 most influential Muslims worldwide. This is a true testament to the respect owed to him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him heavily in the dunya and the akhirah for his efforts and contributions to this deen. Before I pass it on to Dr. Bilal Philips, I'd just like to reiterate that all participants kindly mute your mics and turn off your videos, and that all questions should be written in the chat. During the question and answer session towards the end, inshallah, I'll be selecting some questions, and we'll try my hardest to do justice to your inquiries by selecting the most relevant and popular questions for Dr. Philips to answer. And I pray Allah guides me in this responsibility. Without further ado, I present our venerable guest, lecturer Dr. Bilal Philips.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on his last prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. Our topic this afternoon or evening, night or morning, depending on where in the world you are, is embracing Allah's names in this month, the month of Ramadan. And it is particularly relevant, though one might think, well, names of Allah in Ramadan, we know about reading Quran, we know about Taraweeh, we know about the different fasting issues, but names of Allah, did the Prophet ﷺ say anything about the names of Allah in Ramadan? No, he didn't. But that's the point, is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined the purpose and reason for fasting, saying لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in order that perhaps you would develop a consciousness of Allah. That is sufficient to include the names of Allah, because first and foremost, what are the names of Allah? Why are there names of Allah? Why not just Allah and leave it at that? Allah gave himself names, which he revealed to us through his last revelation, which our brother recited some of them there. And at the same time, he revealed to us others of his names through the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned other names not found in the Quran and gave us understanding of those names. And we know, as Allah had informed his messenger, that there are names of Allah which he did not reveal in any book, to any prophet, to anybody, but remains with him في علم الغيب عنده, with him in his knowledge of the unseen. So there are other names. Now, among the names which we have heard in the Quran, exist there in the Sunnah, we know that the Prophet ﷺ also told us, Inna lillahi tis'atan wa tis'een asman. Man ahsaha dakhala al-jannah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has 99 names. And whoever counts them will enter paradise. In some other narrations, he mentioned, لا يحفظها أحد إلا دخل الجنة. anyone who memorizes, protects them, guards them, will enter Jannah, will enter paradise. So there are 99 that people commonly are aware of. And there are some hadiths mentioned in Tirmidhi and Abi Dawood mentioning the 99, a list of 99 names. However, that collection, compilation, that narration is not authentic. So there are names there like Ar-Rashid, As-Sabur, and others, which are not among the names from the Quran and the Sunnah, right? They're not authentic, but they're mentioned in the list. And then there are other names which are not found in those lists, like Ar-Rabb, Al-Khallaq, Al-Qadir. These are not in the list, but these are in the Sunnah and in the Quran. So the point is that this is just to make you realize that those placards, you know, which you can buy, which is beautifully framed in, you know, frame which looks like polished gold or gold lettering, black background, and all the names are there. All 99 are there. The people hang in their homes. Small versions. People hang in their cars, you know, and put in different locations on their desks, etc. For the purpose of protection from evil. Know that one, those lists that you have are from those inauthentic hadiths, and two, Islamically, the use of amulets is forbidden. Prophet ﷺ had said regarding one who had an amulet and he told him to get rid of it, said if you had kept it on your hand, you wouldn't have entered paradise. It's serious enough that we'll be very careful about what we put on our walls, we put in our cars, we put on our hands, and different locations that we trust in. Whether it's the hand of Fatima, which has two thumbs, or whatever other, the blue eye, which says protection against the ayn, and we have some of this stuff floating around our communities, our families, etc. These things should be gotten rid of. They are not from Allah, they are from Shaitan. So the point here is that Allah revealed these names to his messenger and in the final book of Revelation and in the books before. But what concerns us is the Quran, about which the month of Ramadan was chosen, because of which the month of Ramadan was chosen. Shahr Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. This is why Allah talks about it in that particular capacity. So we know that the Quran has special importance. And people read Quran more in Ramadan than at any other time of the year. MashaAllah. Although the Prophet ﷺ didn't instruct it, if you do or you don't, there's reward in doing so, but there's no sin in not doing so. But the names in the Quran and in the Sunnah, these names of Allah were revealed in order for us to know who Allah is. to know him, to know who he is. Because if we don't know who he is, then we will end up worshiping other than him while believing that we're worshiping him. Isn't this what happened to the Christians? They're worshiping Jesus, thinking that they're worshiping God, but Jesus was not God. The Buddhists, who believe in Buddha as being a reincarnation or manifestation of God, and he's worshipped with his statues and everything else, you know. So they're believing he's God, but in fact, he's not God. So the names of Allah, important to embrace in this month, because the month of Ramadan is a month of action on God, on Allah. That's what the fasting was about. That's what the prayers are about. Why did we pray? What's the purpose of the prayer? Prayer is to reflect on Allah, remind ourselves to follow his commands. This is the essence, that we are communicating with Allah and seeking to do his commands. When we're fasting in order to develop that consciousness of God. So reflection and embracing the names of Allah in this month is a good thought, a good plan, a good course of action, beneficial course of action. But the key is to know, how do we embrace the names of Allah? Well, we know Allah has told us in the Quran himself that وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. That's in Surah Al-A'raf, verse 180. This is one worth keeping on our wall to remind us, not in a form that's so small, the letters are, put together so intricately we can't even read it. No. But as a sign, a reminder. Allah has all the beautiful names. Call on him with them. فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. Now, how do we call on Allah, using those names? One, there are two basic ways that we either call on him asking him for something, or we call on him in praise. We praise him. Now, some of his names invite requests. He is Al-Ghafur. Al-Ghafur. While calling on him. Okay? So the name will tell us what we should do in terms of requesting. Another name like Ar Rahman or Ar Rahim, we know this addresses Allah's infinite mercy. So when we need mercy, we're looking for mercy, then we call on Allah to be merciful with us in the various aspects of our lives where we need that mercy. And the other aspect of calling, we said, was one was requesting, the other one was praising, is using the names which there is nothing specific to request, but it is description of Allah in His greatness. So the name Allah, for example, calling on Him, Allahumma, Ya Allah, this type of name, calling on Him using this name is praise of Allah. And praising Allah is very vital for maintaining a consciousness of Allah. And that's why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had us implement the name Allah by saying Bismillah, the Basmala, before the important things that we have to do in a day. When we get up in the morning, before we eat our food, before we make wudu, before we leave the house or on leaving the house, of using Allah's name when we're eating lunch, before lunch, so on and so forth throughout the day, before going into the bathroom, etc., etc. So basically, we should be constantly mentioning Allah's names, the Basmala, Bismillah, before doing things. This is to praise Allah and bring alive a consciousness of Allah in our minds. I mean, we have all heard this. I mean, this is not something new. I'm not bringing from inside of the Sunnah hidden secrets. No, this is something we've all heard. But the point is that we need to apply it. All those du'as, those words of praise, the adhkar, etc., we need to apply them in our lives and apply them in a reflectful way, one which involves some thought, reflection, so that it's not just a ritual. I remember when I was in the UAE, I had set up a Dawah center there called the Islamic Information Center. And we were inviting people of that area to accept Islam. And alhamdulillah, a number of them did. I would take them to the masjid. We had a masjid close by. And let them pray immediately, get into prayer. Because sometimes people delay teaching new Muslims prayer. And that's not good. I mean, I've met people 1 year, 2 years, they say, we're still trying to learn the prayers. Oh, no. Prayer is an immediate necessity after accepting Islam. That's the next big one, Salah. So what we would do, we'd give them Shahada there, sit down after this, because this is after explaining things to them. Then we would teach them how to make wudu, take them to the masjid, teach them how to make wudu, and let them pray the next prayer in congregation. Of course, they don't know what to say, what to do. They pray in between us who are, the Muslim management of the center, and they just follow and do what we do. Okay, that's that's what they can do. We can't expect them to know Fatiha in, 5 minutes, an hour. For a lot of them, okay, maybe for an hour, a lot of people could learn Fatiha, but learn it how? That's just learning to say the Arabic words. Anyway, point is that I remember on one occasion I had taken a group in that had accepted Islam, about 8 or 9 of them, and prayed together. After the prayer, we sat there, and then we sat in a circle. I brought them all together. We sat in a circle, and I asked them, what are your observations? Do you find difficulty with the prayer or anything? One person said, everything was fine, but I was wondering what happens. I see, when prayer is over, that people, they start to, as if they were getting, Parkinson's disease or something, their hands start to shake like this afterwards, shaking like this. I said, oh, actually, what they're supposed to be doing is remembering Allah, Subhanallah, Walhamdulillah, Wa la ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, or whatever. They're supposed to be, that's what they're supposed to be doing. Subhanallah. But the problem was people are doing it so fast. And even those who are making those adhkar, they're saying it so fast. This is actually, an affront to Allah. We think we're making dhikr, remembering Allah, but we are, from those who yulhiduna fi asma'illah. We are distorting Allah's names. Subhanallah becomes Pallam. Alhamdulillah becomes Hamlam. Allahu Akbar becomes Dabbab. A'udhu Billah. Imagine somebody, your name is Fatima, and they call you Fatma. You're not going to like it. Come on. You wouldn't appreciate anybody distorting your name in this fashion. So similarly, this is the least amount of respect that we can give to Allah, that we can protect his names and call him how he called himself. So, of course, I clarified it for the people. Alhamdulillah, they understood, and but it's something that just stuck in my head. So whenever I get the chance in different venues, I remind people of this, because this is such a widespread disease. I found it everywhere in the Ummah. Everywhere. Anyway, so the point is that فَدْعُوهُ بِهَا. So call on Allah using the names. Now, we do so by, there are two ways we said to do it. One was by praising him. Two, by asking him. Now, there's a third way for application of Allah's names, and that is where the name contains attributes, characteristics, etc., which we as human beings can take on, embrace, and make it a part of our personality and our way, then we should do that. So the name Al Rahman, for example, that we mentioned earlier, which involves being merciful, then that's something we can do. Like the name Al Khaliq, okay, this one, we can't do that. We are not creators. We cannot create anything from nothing, because that's the true creator. There are manipulators that we call creators also. He created a statue. No, he didn't create the statue. He just manipulated that piece of stone or whatever to create, a form. That's what we do. We manipulate what's already here. We don't create from nothingness. So that's not an appropriate name. Khaliq is not an appropriate name for human beings. Al-Bari, similar. Other names that involve things that only Allah can do. Also, the name Allah, we don't take that name for ourselves. People Christians, for example, who believe that Jesus is God, they take the name Jesus, not a problem. Even though it's the name of God, according to them. Right? I don't know too many by the name of God. I think people are a little shy to take that one on. But Jesus, yeah. But for us, those names then, where Allah says He's merciful, He's all merciful, He's most merciful, we try to apply mercy in our lives. We can be merciful also. And the Prophet ﷺ had said, Man la yarham, la yurham. One who doesn't show mercy to others will not find mercy from Allah. So that is a characteristic, that is one of the names whose attributes can be, on a limited human level, be adopted. So where we have attributes of that nature, we adopt them and we live in accordance with them. The second principle in terms of application is that where the names are inapplicable, then we affirm these attributes, these names, to Allah alone, and we reject any attempt by human beings to take on these names for themselves. That is application. We affirm, that becomes the praise that we spoke about earlier. We affirm that this only belongs to Allah, subhanallah. So this name, Allah, unique to Allah. The name Al-Bari, also, a number of scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim said, this is only to be used with Allah. Generally held. The originator, who originates things. So it's not to be given to human beings. But at the same time, the originator, creator, we affirm that for Allah. And in doing so, we reject, for example, the claim that we are here by accident. Right? That is the atheist argument or thought or belief. We are here by accident. An explosion, the Big Bang, created all of this, all that we are here now in. The Big Bang. Nature created us. We reject that. Because this explosion came from something. There was something there to explode. And where did that come from? Well, we don't know. It was always there. So our belief in Allah being the creator rejects this. No, this was all created by Allah. We affirm that. And we reject the atheist argument of accident. Similarly, other names of Allah, like Al-Jabar, for example. Al-Jabar, which means the compeller, the one who compels, forces. In some contexts, for human beings, it's a bad thing. For Allah, it means that whatever He wishes, His creation, in His creation, whatever He wishes will take place. Nothing can resist Him if He chooses, He decides that this is to take place, He can make it happen. We are not on that level, but on our own level where we become Jabbar, actually, Allah condemns that. Allah even told the Prophet ﷺ, you know, that we didn't send you to communicate with the people as a Jabar, you know, as an arrogant, forceful individual, forcing people to do what they don't care to do. That's not how he was sent. He was sent with the best of character. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمَّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. As he said, I was only sent to perfect for you the highest of moral character. That was his job, not to compel. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. You can't guide who you wish. You cannot force people. So Abu Talib on his deathbed, though the Prophet ﷺ was trying his hardest, trying to force him to say La ilaha illallah, he didn't. You couldn't make him say it. That's not for us. It's recognizing that Allah is Al-Jabbar, is recognizing that nothing takes place in this creation that he did not will. He is in control of everything. So in believing that, then we apply it in terms of our own faith by accepting that what Allah wishes is and what he doesn't wish is not. Our sixth pillar of faith, qadar. Qadar Allah wa ma sha fa'al. We have to accept that. So whatever that we are faced with in life, this is by Allah's decision. This should give us a sense of calm, patience, acceptance, comfort in knowing that it is as Allah wished. Now, what we have to do with the situation which Allah wishes now should be in accordance with the Sharia. Because we can't deal with a circumstance that doesn't justify us going against the Sharia, breaking the law, doing anything that we can to escape from this situation. No. So we implement the various names in accordance with what is relevant to us as it relates to us, etc. And what is unique to Allah, we praise Allah with it. And there's always an aspect of the name which requires us to, at the least, affirm Allah's uniqueness. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Allah is uniquely one. He and his attributes are unique to him. So we embrace the names as means of action, courses of action that we may follow. Make a curriculum for ourselves, what we want to do in these 30 days. Try to apply each and every one of Allah's 99 names or 30 names that we can reflect on for this month and try to make them a part of our character. And as another reminder, because Allah has also given us the Quran in this month, that as I spoke about acts, which we attribute to Islam, but which are merely cultural do's and don'ts. We need to get to the bottom of these and worship Allah in this month as He deserves to be worshipped. So the Quran, the main source for the names of Allah, the Quran should be read in a way that we maximize our understanding. That's what's required in this month. Yes, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ completed the Quran in Ramadan. Last Ramadan of his life, he did it twice. Just once was the norm. Last Ramadan, he did it twice. Yes, he did that. But he didn't tell anybody else to do it. Majority of the Sahaba didn't do it because the majority of them had not memorized the Quran. So know that this is not a goal in and of itself. Khatm al-Quran in Ramadan is not a goal in and of itself, although people have made it a goal and given it special. At the end of the first week, I had people sending messages to me saying, completed my first Quran. I plan to do 2 or 3 more before the end of Ramadan. I said, MashaAllah, but did you understand what you read? That's the question. Did you understand what you read? Because if you didn't understand and you were just mumbling letters and sounds, believe that that's not reading the Quran. That's not reading the Quran. Reading the Quran means reading it with understanding. It would have been unthinkable for the Sahaba to know that we today, most Muslims, read the Quran and don't understand what Allah is saying in it at all. It would be unthinkable that a time would come when Muslims would reach that low. And it's been that way for many, many, many generations. It's time for change. It's time to embrace the Quran and Allah's names as a methodology for living our lives in accordance with revelation. This is the value that is specifically in the Quran, which contains Allah's names. Have we understood them? We embrace them by praising Allah with them, requesting from Allah what they encourage us to request, living in accordance with them where possible. This is embracing Allah's names in Ramadan. So I hope that this brief talk has stimulated your gray matter that's in your brain, stimulated it, caused you to reflect, to think, to question, to try to do it the right way. If it has, Alhamdulillah, I ask Allah to give me the full reward for your having benefited. If it hasn't, I pray to Allah that He would guide you to that reality and that you would reach there someday, sometime. So that is the essence of the thoughts that I wanted to share with you today. Students of Georgetown University in Qatar. Barakallahu fikum. As I live in Qatar also, perhaps after COVID-19, I'm out of the country right now. We may get a chance to meet and share and discuss further some of the thoughts which I expressed to you today. So, Sister Iman, would you like to shift over to questions? You're welcome.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Phillips. You've given us a lot to reflect on, and I know myself I'm going to have to rewatch this recording because there's so much beneficial information, alhamdulillah, that I would like to reflect on, that I would like to go back to and continue to understand. So Jazakallah khair, very much thank you for joining us today. And inshallah, after COVID-19, maybe we will meet in person. Maybe you'll be able to join us on our campus, inshallah. So as mentioned before, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them into the chat, and then I will be choosing them depending on how many there are. If there aren't that many questions, then inshallah, we can answer all of them. But please do direct your questions to the chat. And so to begin, Dr. Phillips, we've received one question from Jason. He's asked you to please discuss the creation of the bin as they were created before the jinn and as they were mentioned in the Torah.
The creation of the jinn?
The bin. They were the creation prior to the jinn, and they were mentioned in the Torah.
Well, to be honest, I don't know anything about the bin. I think the bin is, part of folklore. This is not established fact in the Sunnah. If you go into the Torah and that, yes, you can find, a number of other mentions, and that we don't use that as a source of knowledge. It may be verification, meaning that it's in the Quran. It's also in the Torah. Alhamdulillah, that the Quran verifies what's there, but we don't use that as a primary source of knowledge. So the bin, fin, kin, lin, we leave them to to those who like to tell stories. Sure.
Yes, of course. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Another question we've received from Salman is if you could please discuss whether or not we should be making du'as for other prophets and how we can structure the du'a, particularly for all the prophets. But I believe a question I had was how do you structure du'a in general? So I think if you could answer both of those, that would be great, inshallah.
How to structure du'a? I mean, this is according to the either we're taking direct statements which the Prophet ﷺ taught us, it's something direct, in which case the dua is excuse me. That's my daughter.
Does she want to join us? Oh, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum. Hi.
Okay. Excuse me. All right. Alhamdulillah. Sorry about that. You were mentioning about the dua, and how do we make dua? The dua, we either take duas which were given to us by the Prophet ﷺ, where he taught us, some of them using it, Allah's name, etc. Like, when we make dua and we use Allah's name, as-salam, anta salam, minka salam, tabarakta ya dhal jalali wal ikram. So this is a dua which the Prophet ﷺ gave us as a dua by remembering Allah, dhikr, right? Or the dua is the dua which we create from ourselves. Like people, for example, making tawaf. We have a mutawif who takes the people around, and he's got a book and he's reading from a book, or he memorized it, and everybody's just repeating the duas after him. This is not a way of dua. the way of dua is that that dua should come from yourself. Because Allah, it's not dependent on Arabic. You speak in your own language, in the language that you communicate best in. And you can use the ones which the Prophet ﷺ gave, or ones which some of the Sahaba used, etc. I mean, or anybody. So the main point is that if we can use Allah's name, say for example, we've got an exam. People around exam time, many students contact me and ask me, "Can you give us a dhikr or something, wazifa or different names they call it, that I can say to pass?" You can make any dua, ya Qadir, the one able to do all things. Help me to pass this exam. But I always tell them that, of course, if you have not done your part, you didn't study, you didn't review, you didn't prepare, etc., and you're just looking for this magical dua, you just have to say it and boom, you've passed. This is nonsense. Islam doesn't work in that realm. It works in the real realm, real life. As the Prophet ﷺ said to the man who had come in the masjid, left his camel outside, remembered after he came in that he didn't tie him up, and he was in doubt, should he just go and sit with the Prophet ﷺ, and trust in Allah, or should he go back out, tie the camel, and then come back in and sit with him? And the Prophet ﷺ told him what? Aqilha wa tawakkal. Go tie your camel, then trust in Allah. Come on in. This is how we operate with action and reactions, consequences of what our deeds are, etc. We have to be aware of it. We don't ask for the impossible. We don't ask Allah to give us children and we didn't get married yet. Allah give me, so many kids and so, wait, hey, brother, you didn't get married yet? Get married. Ask Allah to help you get married first. After that, then focus on your kids. So, yeah, inshallah.
Absolutely. It's always do your best and then rely upon Allah, because we have to do everything in our own ability. There was another facet to that question, which was, do we have to make dua for all of the prophets?
No. You make dua for all of Allah's creatures, you can. But do you have to make dua for the prophets? No, not specifically. The people of those prophets made dua for them. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made dua for them. They have, they have been accepted by Allah. They're among the people of paradise. So, inshallah, better you make the dua for those who really need it. The people who haven't got there, have not reached that level, have not been chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah.
I mean, there was, so the next following question was if you could elaborate on the understanding and how we understand the qadr and the destiny that Allah has provided to us, especially in times of hardship, and understanding Allah in the light of His names with regards to the qadr of Allah.
Well, to keep it simple, that Allah knows best for what's best for us. He is Al-Alim. He has that complete and comprehensive, all-encompassing knowledge of past, present, future. He's not bound by time. So He has already, based on our choices, He has already defined the course for each and every one of our lives. But they are based on our choices. And Allah is not forcing us to make the choice that He wants. He has given us the opportunity to choose. And the fact that He knows what our choice is going to be doesn't mean he's making us choose what he knows. Yes, it's true. We can't but choose what he knows. But it's still our choice. This is the point. You know, for some people, that's so mind-boggling that, you know, it just tears up their heads. You know, some of them even leave Islam on the basis of this, trying to get into the depths of other, you know. And that's why Allah said, you know, through his messenger, that we should not reflect on Allah in the sense of how Allah does this and how he does that. Better for us to reflect on his creation, what he has done, etc. Allah instead. So this is the proper way. Otherwise, we just say we know we have a choice to do or not do, and we know Allah knows everything. So he's already understood and known what choices we're going to make. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in light of this, I think the next. Sorry, go ahead.
Was there another point? Was there another point in that question? I think there was another aspect of it.
Oh yes, just understanding it in light of Allah's names. But there's another question I think which ties in nicely to this part of it is in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it says that Allah has 99 names. Whoever counts them will enter paradise. And the question is, are there only 99 names of Allah? And what is meant by counting them? Is it just saying them will, in and of itself, give entrance to Jannah?
Yeah, we know common sense. Common sense tells us that if a non-Muslim who doesn't believe in Allah just goes and rattles off the 99 names, he's going to Jannah? Of course not. We all know that. This is if you're having doubt about that, then you know your understanding of the deen and the decisions and judgment and all this is all messed up. No, just saying those names, even as a non-Muslim, even if you are a Muslim, just saying those names is not going to put you in Jannah. The scholars were unanimous on that. Man ahsaha, you know, they explain what is meant by, you know, counting in this sense. It is counting in the sense of understanding their ins and outs, the names, understanding their ins and outs. If you understood the ins and outs of 99 of Allah's names, and we said before in my presentation that, you know, the names are not limited to 99, but it's just 99 out of however many. You know, some scholars counted 1,000, you know, names from the Quran and from the Sunnah. Of course, we're not talking about names we're making up with our own heads, right? But names which are authentically in the Quran and the Sunnah. So the point here is that, you know, what is meant by ahsaha, you know, they said it has to do with knowing the name. Knowing first the meaning of the name, right? What does it mean? If you don't even know what the name means, what is your learning this name going to do for you? It's not magic, you know. This is not a magical kind of those 99. All you got to do is focus on those 99, memorize them, and you can do anything else you want with your life, you know. However, you can drink, smoke, you can, you know, whatever, steal, kill, but you memorize the 99, so you're going to Jannah. No, the deen is not like that. That's the fake deen. Yeah, there's a fake deen which teaches that type of information. But what this means is you understand the meaning. You act on the meaning with yourself, where it's relevant, with Allah, where it's relevant, you call on Allah using them as Allah instructed. All of that is included. Those names which are specific to Allah, you make sure it's given only to Allah. You don't give it to anybody else. You don't give the meanings of those names to anybody else. So it's about the other narration, because see, when you just take one narration, man ahsaha, okay, it seems, it says count, you know, ihsayat, this is, you know, statistics, you counting, numbers. But there's the one which also said, la yahfaduha. La yahfaduha, you use the term hifz. Again, hifz. What does hifz mean? Does it mean just memorizing the names again? He said, no, the kafir could memorize the names. Somebody who has no understanding could memorize the names, and it's not going to do anything for them. It will not take them to Jannah. Scholars explained, hifz here, this is guarding them, because the hafiz is the guard. Guards, protects. You protect them how? Protect them by not having them used in a distorted way, in an incorrect way, used as amulets or, you know, magical potions, and you protect them by knowing their meanings, by applying them to Allah and applying them to yourselves, living in accordance with them. You have protected them.
Okay, the next question is if you could elaborate on the Day of Judgment and what it will be like according to the sources of Islamic knowledge.
What it will be like for what?
Just elaborating on the Day of Judgment and its characteristics, what it would be like, what we are told we will experience.
That's another lecture. That's a lecture in and of itself. You know, the Day of Judgment. You can go on YouTube, inshallah. You know, so there's some brothers and scholars out there who have done some beautiful lectures on the Day of Judgment. You know, giving you, you know, detailed step by step. You know, that's another lecture. I think the only thing I would like to say, you know, about the Day of Judgment is an important dawah issue, because, you know, my concern is always dawah. Understanding Islam, sharing it with others. Now, from a dawah perspective, the Day of Judgment, what about the people who never got the message? There are people on earth, right, today. You can go in the middle of the Amazon, you know, in Brazil. You can go in places in Indonesia, Borneo, places where people have never heard about Islam at all. Generations, as far as we know. In the North Pole, amongst the Eskimos, you know, people, no messenger, nobody carried Islam to them. Or what about babies die? What about the retarded? Didn't have the understanding. You could explain all Islam we want to them, they couldn't understand what you're talking about. Senile, somebody is in a level of senility. When Islam came to him, his brain was gone. Couldn't understand the message. What about all these people on the Day of Judgment? This is what's important. We have an answer. For Christians, they have no answer. What about the people who never heard about Jesus, way before Jesus? Because they say to be saved, you have to accept Jesus Christ as your personal savior. So that then you're saved. You're going to paradise. Finish. You're accepted. But what if you never heard about him? Then what? Well, God knows best. That's it. Well, Prophet ﷺ explained that for all those people, those categories of people who couldn't understand, who didn't get the message, etc., they call them Ahlul Fatra. On the Day of Judgment, They will be raised together, separate from the rest of us who got the message. They'll be raised together. And they will be given their full faculties and everything. At the prime of their youth, they will be brought. And as they're raised, there will be before them a wall of fire. And out of that wall of fire, a messenger will come to them. He will explain to them about Allah, Tawheed, right and wrong, everything. The full message is given to them. Afterwards, he will tell them, he will instruct them to enter the fire from which he came. And the people will start walking towards the wall of fire. Then the fire will flare up. Most of them will back off, but some of them will keep walking in. They walk into the fire and they just disintegrate. Then the fire will calm down. Then the group that remains will walk again forward to try to go in. The fire flame flares up again. Few of them walk through, disintegrate. And this process will continue until nobody walks. They all just stand there. At that point, the Prophet ﷺ said, those who entered the fire will go on to paradise. Those who refused will go to hell. Those who went into the fire are those who had the message come to them and they had their full faculties or whatever, they would have accepted it. And those who stood back and refused to go into the fire, they are those who had the message come to them in its full form, fully explained to them, they would have rejected it. So, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. As Allah said in the Quran, we will not punish anyone until a messenger has come to them.
SubhanAllah. Islam really does have answers for everything. The next question, I believe that would be nice to answer with regards to Ramadan is that it's been said that Ramadan is divided into 3 10s. The first 10 days are for mercy, the second 10 days for protection from the hellfire, and the third 10 days for forgiveness. And the questioner was wondering, is this authentic?
Not authentic. It's not authentic.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Widespread, commonly quoted, but not authentic.
Okay. And if I might interject, if the audience can forgive me, I have a question of my own also regarding the authenticity of innovations, or rather how to approach those with items of bid'ah. As you mentioned earlier, the blue eye to protect from the ayn in the hand of Fatima. So when you are in a community or with people that do believe in these pieces of bid'ah, how do you peacefully instruct against their use without insulting the user or arousing anger?
Well, it depends on the circumstance that you have. If you're just meeting the person one time and that's it, they're on an airplane, they're in an airport, you met each other for a minute, you're only going to be there, or it's somebody who you're going to be living with, they're your neighbor, they're around, you have time to sit with them, talk to them, etc. You have to modify your da'wah according to your circumstance. So the one who is, passing by, you only have a few minutes with them. I mean, there may be other things more important than that, right? So you have to weigh what is there. The person may not be wearing hijab. The person maybe do so many other things that they could be doing. They're not praying when it's time for prayer, they didn't pray, or so you need to prioritize. So now, if after you've done all of that, the hand of Fatima becomes priority now. She's wearing a chain with the hand of Fatima in gold, or a bracelet, what they call a charm bracelet. You got the hand of Fatima, you got the blue eye, you got a few other things on there, right? So now you're in that situation. In that situation, you advise her. My sister, the Prophet ﷺ had informed us that we should not take amulets, wearing any objects, any artifacts, which we would use to prevent evil and to bring us good. That this is Allah. We turn to Allah in prayer and ask Him for the good, because He can bring the good for us. Ask Him to prevent evil. He can move the evil away from us. So you tell them there, because that's all the time you have. So you give them the piece of advice. It's better not to let them walk away without having said anything, if you have the chance, So like that. But if they're your neighbor, then you may do it gradually. You may try to introduce them to some of the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, that this happened and that happened, and what he said to people who were wearing these things, and so and so. And why is, then you go into more detail with them. So always, dawah, when you're giving dawah, you're trying to help others, guide them. You have to think like a doctor. The doctor has to first understand, his patient or her patient. And then they have to give them the medicine which is appropriate to their circumstance. You're on the battlefield. How are you going to deal with medical issues there is different from how you're going to deal in the city where everything is okay. You have to be prepared to modify your approach in order to deal with the spiritual illness that you find.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Before we go on to the next question, I just want to announce that I understand we're all in different geographical locations. So if anyone has to go as iftar is approaching, please feel free to leave. Inshallah, this video will be uploaded. In the meantime, Dr. Philips has very kindly agreed to take questions up until 6:20, 6:30, inshallah. So the next question I believe would be very nice to address is, in your view, Dr. Bilal, how can one react to those Muslims who find very negative things to say against some of the most famous scholars without any valid proof? So personally, this individual gives nasiha for those who don't listen and keeps their distance away, but believes that may be mentally dangerous. So could you please advise as to what one should do when they're faced with individuals who show a lot of hatred towards certain Islamic scholars?
Of course, whenever we hear people speaking ill of others, whether they're scholars or whether they're classmates, whether they're neighbors, whatever, we should advise them not to. We should, advise people that, as the Prophet ﷺ had said, whoever believes in Allah on the last day, فَلْيَقُلِ الْخَيْرِ أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. Either speak good or better to be silent. The time when we may warn people or tell people these things is where there is danger, where you have to, a person may fall into danger as a result of it. But we have to get away from the attacks that are common out there, attacking this scholar and that scholar, and people judging you by the scholars that you follow, and these other kinds of things, which tend to lead to extremist behavior, not wanting to talk to people, not wanting to be around those people, and so on, so on. So, we are one ummah, and some things we may have to tolerate. We don't necessarily have to fight and tackle each and everything that comes up. But what's important what has to do with the deen, the basics, etc., then we should try to correct and advise where, you know, where we know that people are willing to hear us. You know, we're going to try to push ourselves on other people again, you know, it will backfire. So my advice is, you know, to try to take that moderate middle path, give credit where credit is due. You know, though people may have some mistakes here and there, we all have mistakes. You know, before you are eager to point out somebody else's mistake, you know, what about yourself? How are you handling, you know, your own deen and your own character, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another question that is related to how one can advise, especially when there's resistance. So one of the questions that I received is that this questioner, this individual, has a family member who is a practicing Muslimah, but and is married, but on the side of her husband, they believe in shrines and amulets. And when she has attempted to advise her husband, and tell him that these things are sinful, he did not appreciate that advice and claimed that she was being disrespectful to his parents. And this questioner was wondering, how can you guide one in a situation that's as difficult as this?
Well, in circumstances like that, you know, especially if your own husband is doing it, you know, then you have to be as direct as you can, regards to the families, etc. You try to be more indirect. Such a person, I would say, try to invite them to lectures of scholars who are available in their area, you know, who are clear on these points, you know, and it can help them to grow, because maybe the same person that you're speaking of, you know, maybe she initially, her family was doing it and then they got out of it, etc. That's how it usually happens, you know, in many cases, you know, and as it took time for you and your family to grow out and realize what was wrong, you have to also be patient, you know, because with your husband, because, you know, it may take him time also, maybe it takes him more time than you know, so you have to be prepared to work with him, you know, all the way down the line. Because what tends to happen is that for people who have come to this realization is that, you know, though it took them years, if you think back, it took them years to get to where they are, but they want the other people to change overnight. Tomorrow I want you to be doing, you know, but, you know, it's not realistic, you know. We tend to, and it's human nature that, you know, we want things to change immediately. As soon as we realize what's wrong, we want everybody to know what's wrong and stop doing the wrong thing right now. But that's just now not how people are. It takes time. You have to be patient. You have to be willing to take things gradually and allow people a chance to understand and make those decisions themselves.
Yeah. Okay, the next question is particularly sensitive but also very relevant. The questioner asked, so their father passed away, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, may Allah grant them Jannah. And the questioner was wondering what should be done for their father and how to ensure that their father gets increased reward. Inshallah.
Well, they can give, you know, sadaqah in their name, on their behalf. They can do Hajj and Umrah for them. You know, you can do for others and ask that Allah give the reward to them. And any other kind of long-lasting good, especially, you know, where one publishes a book, you know, which is beneficial to Muslims and distributes it freely. One builds a madrasa or builds a masjid, whatever, any of these things, righteous deeds, which especially, as I said, long-lasting ones, you know, which would benefit them over time. As long as they exist, they will continue to benefit them. These things can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Any form of sadaqah jariyah in their name. The next question is going back to the names of Allah. people use the name As-Sattar during adversity. Is that the name of Allah? Sorry, is that the only name of Allah that is mentioned in the Quran or Sunnah?
For a
For
sattar,
adversity.
is huh?
For adversity.
Yeah, this is used for adversity. No, for adversity, so many of the names can be used. It's not the only name, but a sattar, one who shields, blocks, hiding for our mistakes, our errors, etc. Asking Allah not to hold us to account, because what you're doing is, you've done something and you ask Allah to shield you from the evil that this may bring. You can do that with Al-Ghaffar also, will carry that same meaning, to forgive you, in that context. So yeah, Sattar is not the only name. There are many names that can be called on for the same purpose.
Okay. Perhaps the next question is that you could address is from Salman. Many countries today call themselves Muslim countries. Is it valid to make hijrah to them, especially for our brothers and sisters from countries governed by oppression or who promote haram ways of life?
I didn't get the question exactly.
Yeah. The question, I'll repeat it. So the questioner asked that many countries today call themselves Muslim countries. Is it valid to make hijrah to them, especially for our brothers and sisters governed by oppression?
If the country is governed by oppression, the
But
rule
it claims
is an
to be
oppressive,
Muslim.
but they claim to be Muslims.
Mhm.
Well, it's legitimate to make hijrah there if your situation is worse. So I mean, you may not find the perfect Muslim country today, anywhere, but you go to the one which is the closest, with the least deviance or least error or whatever in their practice, and you go from good to better. If you go to one place and you find, okay, you settled in, and you found things you didn't even know were there. It's not so. But then there's another country where it is better. They don't have those, so you can move there. The fact that you make hijrah to one place doesn't mean once you've done that you're bound to stay there. No, you can shift. Imam Shafi'i, though he was from Egypt, he studied with Imam Malik in Medina. Then he went to Yemen, and then from Yemen he went to Baghdad. He went to Iraq, and then from there he went to Egypt. So I mean, moving, that had been the sunnah of people making hijrah to different locations, had been the sunnah, from the time of the Prophet Muhammad. People made hijrah to Habasha, and it was good for a time, but when things got better in Medina, then they made the hijrah there. So, hijrah is not necessarily a fixed decision. You go one place and that's it. No, you may go there, find it better somewhere else, you go there, because you should always try to be in the best circumstance for your deen. Unless you are engaged in certain professions or whatever, which is beneficial wherever you go.
And then the next question, I think in regards to travel, is it permissible for a single girl to travel and live alone in another country for the sake of her studies?
Well, it depends. If she's taken there by her maharim, those from her family who can look out for her, take her there and leave her, or the issue of plane travel, which is only a few hours now. Is it a question of distance or time. If she travels in a safe group, some scholars hold that is also legitimate. The necessity of that travel, or if that is to get knowledge which is essential to the country, to the community, and she travels to get it and bring it back, those kind of circumstances, exceptions are made for travel and how they travel. So each situation has to be judged really and looked at separately, independently, because if in general we can say if the person can get, especially in the case of females we're talking about, right? So females can get this knowledge in the country they're in, then it's better for them than to go abroad in general. But as I said, by looking into the specifics, it might be that there is specialized knowledge there, where you can specialize in a particular field. Yeah, it's the general field, but there's specialized knowledge which goes taking back to your country will benefit the country considerably. So these matters, would be looked at in the individual cases. Though in general, the Sharia discourages women from traveling alone for journeys which exceed 24 hours, especially, and beyond, on their own. Yeah. But if the person is somebody who, for example, accepted Islam, she's in a country which is amongst non-Muslims, she has no maharim to travel with her. What should she do? Should she stay there? No. She goes ahead, travels, given that circumstance.
And then a question on the same strain is one a female who has been admitted into university and her class only consists of male students. Then how will she be guided as to interact with those she has to work with?
Come again, please.
Yeah, so the sister is asking the question that she's in a university and she is the only female student amongst the majority male class. She's wondering how can she be guided as to how to interact with these students when they're required to work together.
Well, we know that Islam has guidelines, general guidelines in terms of how decorum one should carry oneself, and she sticks to those. Don't get into unnecessary conversations which are leading, where they're leading to harm. You try to cut things if you know that things are heading down the wrong channel. Avoid it. What I would say is that if you're in a profession where everybody is male and you're the only female, you have to question yourself, why are you in that profession? Is that a profession which is normally men do this? This is one of the men's specializations. If that's the case, then it's better you don't need to be there. Go and take one which is more female oriented, more that you'll be comfortable with, etc. You not put yourself in that thing. You don't have to be a fighter pilot. You don't have to drive a tank. You don't have to, so many other fields which are, mechanical engineering, whatever, you're going to be building buildings, this is all 90% men, right?
Mm-hmm. So the next question, unrelated, is regarding the religious perspective on music. This questioner said that there was one hadith pertaining to music instruments being haram. However, there are other hadiths where the Prophet ﷺ allowed for music to be played in weddings. And so they were just wondering if there could be further clarification on what is the Islamic stance on music.
Well, what the Prophet ﷺ promoted, encouraged, supported was the duff as a musical instrument. The duff, the drum, beating of a drum. And so what is in that category, that is obviously, we know that has gotten the seal of approval from Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, some people try to say, well, okay, it's only that little duff, this special one, which is like this and that and that. No, no, no. That's what was available. And the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam okayed the duff. Other places where you call it a drum or you call it a whatever, but it's the same thing, It just gives you a sound, boop, boop, boop. Okay? It's not a musical instrument. Now, if you get a drum like that, the ones in India, where they have the strings on the leather, and they manipulate them so it's making sounds, and music, it's making music. Then no, that becomes forbidden, And al-ma'azif, which the Prophet ﷺ said would, be in common usage in the days to come, times to come, when people deviate, etc. It's known as wind and stringed instrument. This is how they normally describe them: wind and stringed instruments. Yeah, it's a flute. It's a, stringed is a guitar. It's these ones that are producing music, and synthesizers, which produce the same sounds but electronically. So, because the issue is not the instrument itself, but the sound that it produces. So the wind and stringed instruments and their ilk, those that are similar to them, these have been prohibited by the Prophet ﷺ. Whereas the other things, if you're clapping your hand, or you're beating your leg, or you are, hitting the table, or you are hitting spoons together, or whatever, it's not producing music. It's just a beat, really. It's producing some, a rhythm. That's all it's producing is a rhythm. Then those are okay, in my view. Okay, some people say, no, it's just the duff. Okay, that's because that's what the Prophet specifically told the people. Okay, go beat the duff. When Abu Bakr, chased the girls away that were beating the duff, he said, no, let them do it. Go ahead, have the marriage and beat the duff. But that was not a limiting instruction. He gave an example of what could be used. And he spoke against wind and stringed instruments. So therefore, what is not wind or stringed or electronically producing the similar sound is okay. What is in that category, which was specifically, because in general, the halal is wide, the haram is narrow, so that's how it is in the deen, the things that are forbidden for us, of all the drinks that are forbidden, and all the drinks that are available, the forbidden drinks are narrow. Foods we can eat, wide, halal. Haram, narrow. Always the forbidden area is that tree, the one tree with the fruit that Allah said don't eat, right? Of course, shaitan is always going to be there to try to get us to partake of it, but that's in general how it is. So similarly, when it comes to music, musical instruments, etc., the forbidden area is narrow. The permissible area, in terms of produces all the beats and everything, that's wide. We don't need to try to make everything constricted. Inshallah.
Okay. What was the next question? Let's see. One questioner was wondering how they can be guided to be closer to Allah. And I think a question related to that is also, what are the best du'as to ask Allah for success?
In terms of the first question, which was how to get closer to Allah, obviously we're closest to Allah in sujood. So it means that as much as we can make sujood, in salah, that is salah primarily, we should make as much salah as possible, as much as was advised by the Prophet ﷺ. We try to do as much of that as possible. At the same time, sujood also includes sujood al-shukr. This was the practice of the Prophet ﷺ. It's dead amongst many Muslims today, but we can revive that. Whenever good news comes to you, etc., make sujood. Sujood al-shukr doesn't require wudu. It doesn't require facing the Kaaba. It doesn't require hijab. You can just make it as you are. Obviously, you're not going to do it naked, but as with some clothes on at least, you make your sujood al-shukr. That's recommended, strongly recommended. To make that a regular habit. Whenever good comes, make that sujood al-shukr. So those are amongst the things. And of course, one of the important things for increasing our own closeness to Allah is to be around people who are close to Allah. If you have a choice of friends, you have a range from those who are the farthest away from Allah and those who are the closest to Allah. From you can observe them, and the ones who are farthest away from Allah may seem to be the ones that are the most fun. Now you have to weigh things, right? Is it about being around those who are the most fun, or being around those who are most likely to remind you of Allah, and help you in your path in life to paradise? So this is where you have to weigh things, weigh your friends, weigh your circumstances. So you always judge the circumstances in that way. Which one is the best for me if I want to get closer to Allah? The other question about the best dua. The best dua is the dua which is most suitable to your circumstance. So, if you are, for example, addicted to music, you can't get out of it, you're addicted to it, then a dua for success in your studies is not the appropriate dua for your circumstance. You have a problem here which is affecting a good portion of your life, then your dua, the best dua is the dua which addresses what you need the most. So in making dua, you prioritize what are the most important things, and depending on the circumstances, the dua is best. When you're going to bed at night, the Prophet ﷺ gave us specific duas. So we don't use the dua from the morning when you're getting up at night, and so on and so forth. We have brains to think. We don't have to follow dictates. Somebody dictates to you, you got to do this then, this then, this then. So you can. There's a book called Hisnul Muslim. It's very good. Hisnul Muslim has authentic du'as for virtually everything. And those are ones which are specified by the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, we can say these are the best du'as. The ones which the Prophet ﷺ said, when this happens, do this. For these circumstances, do this. So those are the best ones, inshallah.
Okay. I think the last question that was addressed was one question that said the individual wanted advice on how to improve their Arabic because they've been using English more regularly. And I think I also very strongly relate to this question because as beautiful as Arabic is, it is relatively difficult to learn. So inshallah ta'ala, if you could provide us with some guidance and advice on this.
Okay, for learning Arabic, there are many things, programs available online. My university, the International Open University, formerly known as the Islamic Online University, we do have Arabic programs, intensive Arabic programs, certificates, diplomas, bachelor's degree in Arabic, so you can pick and choose from what you find to be the most appropriate. You look at the syllabus, look at what they're covering. If you can get some sample courses, you can sit in and see how the instruction is, whether it's something to your liking. And there's a lot out there on the net now, in days past, where there was no internet access, and then people had to make massive efforts to get access to knowledge of Arabic or anything similar. Whereas today, it's at our fingertips. Right now, as I said, I can tell you, you go to iou.edu.gm, you click on it, boom, you get into Arabic, boom. Tonight, you can start your Arabic course. As simple as that. So, mashallah, we thank Allah for making life much easier for us, seeking knowledge, because of course, seeking knowledge is among the things which leads to paradise, as the Prophet ﷺ said, Man salaka tariqan, whoever takes a path, yaltamisu fihi ilman, seeking knowledge, sahalallahu lahu tariqan ila al-jannah. Allah makes the path to paradise easy for them. So, Allah has made it easy, made it possible. You're able to attend and a lecture like this, where I'm sitting here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. You're sitting there in Georgetown University, or in your dormitories, or in your home, or whatever, there in Qatar, in Doha, and you can benefit. MashaAllah. Subhanallah.
Absolutely. I mean, we're more connected now than ever in a strange way. Absolutely. And I think just to add to what you've mentioned, there's so many platforms that upon COVID-19, I think one of the blessings of this tragedy that has come out of it is that there have been so many online resources that are so openly available. You just have to look, and you'll find so many Islamic online organizations that have opened up for free, or that have opened up for limited trials. Inshallah ta'ala, you can benefit from those. There was, Dr. Phillips, if you entertain one more question, there was one sent to me, which is asking which should one prioritize and which is more important, the tafsir of the Quran or the tajweed of the Quran. Both are important, but perhaps which should one prioritize?
Tafsir is more important than tajweed. Should you learn tajweed? Yes. For your own reading, for your own salah, etc. Tajweed is important. As much as we can, we should learn Quran with tajweed. But if we have to choose between tajweed and tafsir, then tafsir is more important, because it is more critical that we understand what Allah is saying in the Quran than that we're able to say, and repeat the words of the Quran.
Yes, inshallah ta'ala. You can all benefit. Okay, I believe there are no more questions. So Jazakallah khair, yeah. Dr. Phillips, we really, really appreciate it on behalf of the Georgetown University, Qatar, Muslim Student Association. Thank you for your time and your correspondence. If you have any last words, please feel free to close us off. Inshallah.
Well, inshallah, as students of Georgetown University and Muslims, it is important that you be examples for Islam. Your study should be done with proper Islamic guidance. There's a way to be a true Muslim student, and you should know it. You should know the distinction between a Muslim student who is true, real, and who is fake, unreal. The true Muslim student is a student who is Muslim first. He or she is Muslim first. So there are Muslims who happen to be students. Whereas the fake Muslim student is a person who is a student first. Is a student who happens to be a Muslim. Right? I mean, these two are opposite ends or flip sides of the coin. So we need to be Muslims who happen to be students. We could have been anything else. We're Muslims first. Whereas the fake Muslim student is a student who happens to be a Muslim. He could have been a Buddhist, he could have been an atheist, he could have been anything else. Meaning you treat your studies in the way that students treat their studies all over the world. So you don't prepare yourself properly, because your plan is to cheat your way through. This is the biggest standard characteristics of students globally. They're the biggest cheaters on the face of the earth. So, so the reality, and I know this from having taught, school for 10 years, taught in university for 20 years and more. I know, and there's no doubt about it. So you have to decide at what point you want to become a true Muslim student. The first thing you have to do is to give up cheating. You have to do it now. You have to decide now. Swear by Allah that you're not going to cheat in any test or examination from today onwards. Give it up. Inshallah, then you'll be on the right path. And don't help anybody else cheat, because that's the other question people come. What about if my good friend asks me? No, they can't cheat unless you help them cheat. So if you don't help anybody cheat and you don't cheat, from here on in, whatever you get, you have earned. You have to heal yourself first, because this is a sickness for students throughout the world. You have to heal yourself and be honest in your study and earn what you work for. Don't look for something for nothing. So that's my overall and general advice, as students. And then, of course, treat your deen seriously. It's not something that we should take for granted, because we have no way of determining how long this life is going to be for us. So try as best as you can to be doing, saying, living the way you would be happy to meet Allah, as best as you can. Barakallahu fikum. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, I think that's a good close. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Jazakallah khairan for joining us. May you all have a blessed Ramadan, inshallah. May Allah forgive our sins and elevate us all amongst the ranks of His true believers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.